Sakina Salem. Sakina is an award-winning graphic designer from Tanzania who leads the Data Lab team's efforts in data visualization and web user interface design at Code for Africa, Africa's largest civic technology and data journalism initiative. She employs various techniques to present data in cross-border media-based journalism, including interactive visualizations, satellite imagery, and motion graphics. As part of Academy Africa, CFA's public learning platform, she also provides training in using data visualization techniques for effective storytelling. During her 4 years at Code for Africa, she has developed a deep appreciation for the power of data to affect change. Working alongside a passionate team, she has strived to make data memorable and impactful and witness firsthand how this work can drive real change in Africa. And we're very excited to welcome her to our stage virtually to speak about the role of data visualization in African investigative journalism.
Storytelling has been crucial in African communities to pass down knowledge, history, and values. How dreary and forgettable would it be if our ancestors simply passed down a list of life lessons? Probably as dreary and difficult as reading numbers on a spreadsheet. We are becoming increasingly aware that similar techniques of narrative and storytelling explain data memorably. However, according to Brent Dykes, the author of Effective Data Storytelling, inciting positive change requires data, narrative, and visualizations. Hello, I'm Sakina Salem. I lead the Data Lab team's efforts in data visualization and web user interface UI design at Code for Africa, or CFA. Code for Africa is Africa's largest civic technology and data journalism initiative, and at CFA, teams of fact-checkers, data wranglers, writers, and technologists come together to tell a narrative around data. With the advent of communication technology, we have found that Africans are now more connected than ever. This presents us with opportunities to reach a wider audience and use a variety of techniques to visualize data. At the same time, challenges and limitations can hold us back from showing the most accurate depictions and situations. Using CFA projects as examples, let's explore how data visualizations can influence the consumption and dissemination of information in African countries and vice versa. At Code for Africa, we use Flourish as our primary visualization tool. It has an extensive repository of charts and can depict simple or complex data with multiple variables, imagery, and filtering functionalities. These charts are easy to share, add to online articles, and update with new information. Flourish and other data visualization platforms such as Carto and Data Wrapper have influenced the way people now view and use data for decision making. Flourish charts are interactive and can therefore have higher retention rates. Similar to practical chemistry lessons, where experimentation solidifies our understanding of theoretical concepts, interacting with data visualizations and diving deep into the data can be a memorable experience for a reader. Flourish can create both high-level and micro-level visualizations with all the data so a reader can really explore each individual data point if we use the right visualization. A hierarchical map such as a tree map is an example of funneling down from a large patterned data to individual statistics. To simplify complex data further, Flourish has a lot of filtering functionality. Now, there's a lot of debate about whether we should allow filtering in charts because it essentially hides certain information that could potentially change how a viewer interprets a chart. On the other hand, there is support for filters because it allows viewers to sift through large data. This decision should be made case by case, taking into account the expertise of the viewership and so on. A middle ground can be found in Flourish's Grid of Charts feature. This feature allows us to show all the data side by side according to a chosen variable. So instead of crowding a small space with multiple bars and lines, the information is laid out and all of it is available from the start without the need to filter. We were able to use this method successfully in the pandemic poacher story written by Infonal in 2022. These are some of the ways that data visualizations, particularly on Flourish, have influenced the way we consume and disseminate data. However, these techniques are not only effective in Africa, but everywhere around the world. Most of the challenges, limitations, and even opportunities for utilizing new techniques come about when we think about how the African population consumes information and how that affects the kind of visualizations we create. Before we focus on how the information is viewed, let's first discuss the issues of data collection and availability. Despite the recent technological boom in Africa, the collection and availability of data are often unreliable. Surveys are sometimes completed inconsistently, or the results are not well documented. African census and other forms of data collection are still heavily reliant on personal interviews, which will inevitably lead to margins of error. An example of inconsistent data collection is this chart we created for a dossier about the scourge of human trafficking in African countries in 2021. Journalists used this dossier to find patterns and report stories related to the issue on the website traffic.africa. Most of the survey data had two categorical variables, for example, male or female. However, in some years, the data was combined as the total, making it impossible to know specific numbers for each category. Our solution to this particular problem was to create stacked bar charts that showed total numbers per year, but differentiated the variables wherever possible. This gave the audience a top-level view of the statistics per year, as well as a more in-depth look at the breakdowns when it was available. At CFA, we deal with many situations where the data is unavailable or obscure. While each case has a unique solution, we ensure that all the facts and explanations are presented clearly each time to avoid misinterpretations. Now, let's talk about the African audience. When we are creating visualization for journalists, government officials, and industry experts, we are at liberty to create interactive visualizations on Flourish. Most of these people have access to and know how to use laptops and the internet. However, there are many communities in Africa that live in areas where the infrastructure does not support these technologies. Few people have a smartphone with limited connectivity. The result is that the majority of the people who need to know the information we have still rely on getting their information from radio and print sources. This presents another challenge: language. Africa is a large continent with over 20 major language groups spoken in different regions. Many journalists around Africa speak local languages and can explain the data and concepts. So CFA is proud to partner with such journalists and provide translated visualizations that can be printed in newspapers as well. We are happy to also provide assistance in analyzing the data so that journalists can translate and explain it to their audience. For example, the Pesayatu project, which was presented on Outliers last year, had a division where some East African radio stations presented facts and stories in their local languages. In this case, there were static social media posts created, which could have also been used in print, and translated into different languages to engage the most affected audience. Designing visualizations for smaller devices is not only helpful in rural areas. The part of our audience that does have access to the internet and technology is increasingly finding it more convenient to get their information from social media and smartphones. In a fast-paced world with information overload, we have to stay relevant even on small screens. We have to ensure that our visualizations and content are available and just as informative and engaging on smartphones as on larger devices. While visualizations depicting numerical data will always be important, at CFA, we have used a totally different type of visualization which successfully combats our limitations and has been quite popular with our audience. That is satellite and drone imagery. First and foremost, it transcends language and expertise. Showing a community leader pictures of how deforestation near their village has changed the landscape can probably derive more emotion than explaining elevated carbon dioxide levels. Exposing the growth of an ignored settlement can force the leaders to make their government accountable more than the demographic statistics written in fine print in a 100-page report. Secondly, images are easy to share on any screen size, and particularly on social media where the accompanying story is sure to reach far and wide. So let's talk about some of the ways we have used imagery to tell a story effectively. One of the best examples I can share with you is the story of unmapped and neglected Makoko. This is the story of how an overcrowded fishing village of 300,000 people was neglected despite its vicinity to Lagos in Nigeria. A glance on Google Maps would show you nothing, but Code for Africa and OpenStreetMap partnered with local youth to map out the village. You can see what seems to be barren land on Google Maps is actually a thriving settlement teeming with homes, businesses, and life. The unique aspect of this project is that the data gathered to put together the project was imagery data. Using drone technology, imagery, and GPS locators, the team was able to map out the Makoko landscape. Not only did imagery ignite emotion, but it also added to the solution. After all, the image could not be refuted. The slider, which represents the stark contrast between Google Map and the new map, is a feature from Flourish as well. And once again, it is interactive and responsive, making it accessible to almost everyone around the world. Other images taken using the drone show clear signs of how much the people of Makoko contribute to the Nigerian demographics and economy, and how unacceptable it is that the government have no state archives or information or even plans for welfare for this community. We are happy to announce that the project was featured on major news networks such as CNN, Al Jazeera, and France 24. Officials were forced to recognize that Makoko was ignored for years. Today, they are part of the project planning, and the people of Makoko are already seeing a difference. While this was a side-by-side look at how Makoko is portrayed on a map, this method of using a slider is quite successful in showing before and after images. A Google Earth time-lapse can also provide a similar experience as it takes you through the changing landscape over time. But when images are viewed using a slider, the contrast is stark and the impact is immediate. We successfully used this technique to show the effects of a new dam in Sudan in the consortium-led investigative article Sucked Dry, written by Infonile in 2020. Images are powerful. But can you imagine what would happen if you added an almost cinematic experience to your satellite imagery? Google Earth Data Studio lets you do just that. Using a keyframe-like construct, you can create a video of any landscape from any direction and even show changes over time. This video, following the river, was created to show the locations of hydroelectric power plants. It shows the distance between each dam and then shows a little detail about each one. The extra details were added using Adobe After Effects. This brings me to my next point: motion graphics and animations. Social media companies encourage people to add images to their posts to get more viewership and retention rates, but it is a known fact that moving images are even more powerful. I created a motion graphic to showcase the data for Sucked Dry. At the time, this was quite powerful and interesting. However, the limitations of such a motion graphic are that it is time-consuming and the information cannot be easily updated. However, shorter and simple videos with bite-sized information have been used effectively on social media to easily spread information, and now there are plenty of platforms such as Canva that can help create such videos. So the role of data visualization in African investigative journalism is to bring to light patterns that community and their leaders can work together to find solutions for and alleviate their problems. While numerical data is essential in showing patterns, possible factors, causes, and perhaps even solutions, Images are inspiring. They impel everyone to look for more information and to try and make a difference. This is why we use both to tell our investigative stories and hopefully incite change. The Code for Africa team has recognized the challenges of visualizing data for the African audience and obtained the skills and experience to overcome them. Over the years, we have supported many others who want to write their own stories and use visualizations to supplement their work. In so doing, Code for Africa has built a few communities such as Africa Fact-Checking Alliance, AFCA, and Hack Hackers, where data journalists, experts, and fact-checkers can network, collaborate, and support each other. We also have the first peer network dedicated to women for data journalists and scientists called Data. We encourage everyone who would like to advance their career with core skills in data journalism and visualizations to join our MOOC called Academy.Africa. Our courses are written by experienced individuals at CFA, including myself. As part of Academy.Africa, my colleagues and I have trained hundreds of journalists and even a few industry experts on how to visualize data to reach a wide audience. This includes representing numerical data, obtaining digital imagery, and even taking photographs that draw attention using simple techniques such as golden thirds, perspective, and aspect ratios. While these may seem second nature to a designer, it is quite novel to most people when they learn about how much their images can portray when they are taken with intention. We even recently made contributions to BBC's climate change MOOC as well, with an extensive section on data visualizations. As our community is expanding, we are looking for experienced UI designers who can help with creating visually appealing infographics, professionally designed investigative articles, and other design elements, and want to make the difference. Through my 4 years at the CFA, I have developed a deep appreciation for the power of data to affect change. Working alongside a passionate team, I have strived to make data memorable and impactful, and witnessed firsthand how this work can drive real progress in Africa. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Obina. Thank you, Sakina, so much for the presentation and your time and the amazing work of Code for Africa. It's really cool. I have kind of two questions. I'll try to be simple with them though. So the first question is, when you are making stories more for African audiences, right? So like you said in the presentation, not all of them have access, and they may not be as exposed to the field. So what has been your biggest challenges with getting them to consume the content, the data journalism content? I'll stop with that question first and then do the other one.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for your question. So the biggest problem I think we would have is just even getting to those remote areas in rural areas and rural villages, and getting people to actually look at this information, whether it is in print, whether it's even listening to it in their own language, but actually just accessing people is a major issue. We do have few Code for Africa members who do actually go out in the field. Like for example, Makoko was a very field project. So we do have a few like that, but that is actually our main concern, is that we are reaching those people in those very remote areas who should have access to this information so that they can make better decisions for themselves. So that would be, I would say, our real major concern at the moment.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And a follow-up to that, yeah. So if you think of places like, I'm from Nigeria, by the way, some context. And so I know, Yabakon Valley is a thing and all of that. So there's like a huge boom in tech and people trying to get into it, right? So how have you found, when creating communities around data viz and just data consumption, really, to what level do you see adoption with this new growing sect of people who are interested in it? Is it as strong as you'd expect, or is it still a bit here and there?
No, I think it's very strong, I would say. For example, in the Makoko story, we had actual people from Makoko, young girls and boys from Makoko, actually using drone technology, using geolocators and so on, working with Code for Africa, working with Humanitarian, OpenStreetMap, to make to make those maps, to create them digitally. And these are, these youth were not exposed to a high-level education or anything like that. So the way they adopted this technology and how they worked with us to create these maps and really change the way people look at Makoko now is really fascinating. And I think we are seeing a lot more adoption of these technologies. Just recently, I was reading an article about how much just within Tanzania, over half of the population has adopted the internet on their smartphones. And I think there is going to be no stopping anybody from accommodating technology in their lives now. I think it's becoming, it's great, really. We are very excited about how much we are able to bring people in and really use digital tools to improve their lives.
Cool, thank you. And sorry, the actual second question, because that was just a follow-up because I was thinking as you were talking. I apologize, everyone. I'm going to get off the mic in a minute. So my other question was, so I'm part of the African diaspora, and I know a lot of people in the African diaspora want to come back and do different things on the continent, but there's just a lack of awareness and knowledge about what is actually existing there. So I'm curious about how Code for Africa, is that something that you guys do, working with the diaspora and people who want to come back, and like, how do you do that? And yeah, what does that look like? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we are happy to welcome anybody who would like to work with us on any projects in Africa when they come back and they want to promote something that will help the communities around them. We work mostly on Slack, so that's somewhere they can contact us. Also, we have our website, codeforafrica.org. So we are definitely very looking forward to anybody who would like to contact us, and we have worked with others who in the past as well who have contacted us. So there is no limit for us. We are happy to help anyone who is willing to make a difference in Africa.
Great. Other questions down here in front?
Hi, I'm Vivian. I'm based here in Lisbon, but I'm originally from Brazil, Rio. So I was really delighted to see this project of Makoko, because we had a similar project in Brazil to recognize favelas. It's almost the same project. So I'm delighted to see these kind of initiatives happening in the Global South, in other areas. My question for you is, since this is something that happens in Brazil, like the internet is basically social media. People normally don't have access to the outside internet because mobile companies only allow you to have free access to the internet, to Instagram or Twitter sometimes. So do you have this as a preoccupation, like if you want to achieve the real population who are like being, for example, not only the people who are political changes who do, basically reframing my question, do you think that you need to do these contents, especially in social media, for achieving people with like low access to the internet? Thank you. I don't know if you could understand it.
Actually, I missed the first part, but if let me just repeat the question from what I understood. So the question is whether we should use more of social media to reach certain more remote areas. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Yes, I personally believe that we're going to have to really make a big social need to, this is the major way that a lot of people communicate now. So when I said that I had just read that more than half of the population of Tanzania alone is on the internet, is subscribing to internet, there was a breakdown, and the breakdown was that 50% of those internet subscribers actually use it mostly for Facebook, for example. And then there were more social media breakdowns after that, such as YouTube and so on. So we are starting to see that our major audience is on social media. So definitely we're going to have to cater to that. And that's why we are always on the lookout for platforms where we can visualize data in smaller screens so that we can make sure that that is available on social media, and it's fast access, and it's also, it takes less data, I'm guessing. So it's, you're right. I think especially with in Tanzania, I can speak in Tanzania that internet providers and mobile providers, they are constantly giving free access to social media and so on. And so that is what most people use to disseminate information. So if we are to really want our projects to expand and reach the most people, we are definitely going to have to look at social media as the main source, or I say source of disseminating information, I guess. So,
Thank you, and congrats again.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. The hand up in the back there.
Hi, Sakina. My name is Ajua, and I am Ghanaian and an audio journalist. So I'm wondering, can you say more about how you work with or build on top of more traditional kind of older forms of media that are more entrenched in Africa, such as radio?
Sure. So last year we presented on Outliers, the Pesayetu project. And I would say during my time at CFA, that was one of the major projects that we worked on that had to do with the radio. And it was really great because we had those different languages with, journalists actually working with us almost on a daily basis to find, infographics, very simple infographics like the one I showed in the presentation, where we just, provide a number and explain what that number means. So for example, if it is, 20% of a certain population can have access to water in their own houses, something like that. We were creating those visualizations, and we were helping the radio journalists also understand and analyze and break down how that impacts the communities around them. And they were then translating it and helping us inform the audience based on that. So that's how we were doing the radio journalism project. And they were also writing articles as well online. So there was a digital aspect to it. We had the social media campaign, we had articles online explaining the data as well. And then there was the actual radio program that was explaining this information to the audience. And we do something similar with print as well. We have, especially in Tanzania, I would say, we have had a lot of requests to do print visualizations because a lot of people still like to read on newspapers. And I thought that Dr. Nicola Bateman's comment about being able to annotate on the chart on a piece of paper was really great because I just realized that actually I missed that too. But just putting it on print and sending it out, we get a lot of requests like those as well. So this is what we do. We collect the data, we analyze the data, we help the journalists inform their audience about it. I hope that answers the question.
You did.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you so much for your work.
And that takes us through the end of our talk. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure to bring you to our virtual stage.